finally, Stewart. Today we want to talk about the future of media. Stewart, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. Very much appreciated. Yeah, I'm Stewart Rogers. I'm managing editor at Grit Daily, which is a big tech news, entertainment, and lifestyle publication. I'm editor-in-chief at Badass Times, which is a publication and social network for digital nomads. I also contribute to Hacker Noon, which of course is another big tech news publication. And I formerly ran the research arm of VentureBeat, which was called VB Insight. I've been around the media for a long time. Back in the day, used to run one of the world's largest PlayStation news websites as well. In addition to what I do as a journalist and an editor and an editor-in-chief, I happen to be a digital nomad. I also happen to advise a bunch of startups. I have a bunch of my own startups, including Badass Empire, which I co-founded with Victoria Loskotova. And yeah, I just generally like to keep myself busy.
Okay, Stewart, thank you so much for coming. And first question, how is the media sector doing during the pandemic? What's going on?
Oh, it's been super interesting, actually. You know, obviously, a lot of the media has focused on the pandemic as a news source because, of course, there have been millions of stories created around the pandemic. As far as its effect on publications, it does depend on your type of publication. We've already seen that some of the more traditional media, such as local newspapers and local magazines, have already fallen by the wayside. It's just untenable in terms of keeping those staff members on and paying their salaries, and a lot of them have to be furloughed or fired as media companies struggle with the economics of running these businesses within a pandemic. For the online media, it's actually been interesting because what we've seen is that traffic numbers in general have gone up, and that shouldn't be a big surprise to people. We are all, sitting in our homes. We've gone through several weeks of lockdown and isolation and quarantine. Depending on which country you're in, that may still be continuing. And so how do you keep yourself informed? How do you keep yourself entertained and amused? And the answer, of course, is you turn to online media. Whether you're sitting there binge watching on Netflix, or whether you're sitting there reading every single story that comes out in, Badass Times or whatever, that is your way of getting the news. It's the way of getting the information. So we've actually seen traffic numbers go up dramatically. In some cases, they've doubled, and that, as I say, shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but sometimes the numbers are a little bit surprising.
Let's talk about next technology trends beyond next 15 years. What it should be for the media, maybe artificial intelligence and deepfakes, maybe VR, maybe something like the synthetic media. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of things to unpack there. And, we've already seen some publications, just to deal with VR first, we've seen some publications make really good use of VR. The New York Times, for example, did some fantastic and really stunning VR projects to, augment what they were providing to the world. There is an inherent problem with VR. And actually, the very last piece of research I did for VB Insight before moving on from VentureBeat was about how VR is being used by consumers, and the answer was not very much. It turns out that taking your smartphone and sticking it into a piece of plastic and putting it on your face, or taking a dedicated device like a PlayStation VR or an Oculus and putting that on your face is not that pleasurable an experience, and people generally don't like it when the pain of doing something is higher than the pleasure they get from it. So VR from a consumer standpoint is kind of fallen flat. And, it still works really, really well from a top-down perspective. But we've found that, when it comes to consumers using VR, it's not actually that popular. It's going to take some kind of killer app to really make VR stick and for people to care about it. I care much more about the future of augmented reality, where you can still see what you're actually looking at, as well as seeing the information in front of you. But we're still years away, and that's quite evident from, even things like Magic Leap and DAQRI and all the other leaders in AR. We're still a long way away from AR devices looking like these glasses and acting accordingly. So then, what else are we talking about? Well, with AI, that's kind of interesting. AI is already doing a fantastic job of writing articles, and particularly in sports reporting. There's a lot of sports reporting where there is an article that is constantly updated with the very latest action that's happening within a sporting event. And what you might not realize is a lot of that, even with the humor and the jokes and what looks like a human being injecting their personality and emotion into it, a lot of that's being written by artists right now. We're taking all of the sensors from a football game, for example, and we're able to tell who's got the ball, who's kicking it, whether somebody is throwing it in from the touchline, whether it's a corner, whether there's a foul. We're able to tell all of that, and then AI is able to write that out as a constant article that's updating all the time with humor, with emotion, with personality. So that's already in play. Obviously, that means that my job as a journalist might be a little bit in jeopardy in the future, because once AI starts to write creatively, you could literally feed it a press release, and it could probably do as good a job as I do of reporting the news. So, I may have to think about other ways to do my job. But the one that worries me the most, and I know this is in the title of today's talk, is deepfakes. AI, has brought us deepfakes, and there are two different types of deepfakes. There are audio deepfakes and video deepfakes. Audio deepfakes are obviously much harder to determine whether they are fake or not, because you are literally just using somebody's voice, and
and face too, actually, and face too.
Yeah, for the video deepfakes, obviously you're using video, and you're able to put either one person's face on another, or what is typically being done is that you're taking somebody famous and you're making them say whatever you want, and it will look like them. We've even got to the point where we have apps where you can just scan your face, and then you can put your face in popular videos and music videos and all of that kind of thing. And even though you can tell, and you definitely can tell, there's that uncanny valley where that that's just not a human being. There will come a time when the processing power of the neural networks behind that is so good, and the stitching and the everything they're doing in order to make that look real is so good that you won't be able to tell the difference. Right now we're able to do very convincing audio deepfakes where I can listen to a recording and it does sound exactly like the person. And from a technical standpoint, I only need 3.5 minutes of your voice, and I can make you say anything. The technology is available. I can literally have you read a script, and nobody would know it isn't you, and that's pretty scary.
Yeah, but it's this risk. But what is the solution for the deepfake and in fake news? What is the solution for the customers and for the regulation, or maybe technology?
It's going to take a generation. First of all, this is not going to be a fast solution. Frankly speaking, we all need to do a better job as consumers of information in fact-checking that information and understanding whether it is real or not. The same fact-checking that I do as a journalist, you need to do as a consumer. I'll give you a good example. There was somebody that shared in a chat group that, whilst everybody was being distracted with the pandemic, Hillary Clinton was going to be in court to talk about her emails that day. Now, it's pretty simple, to go and do some fact check on that. First of all of the court records in the United States are available, so you can go and look up and see exactly who is in court on any given day. Second of all, if it would have served the right-wing media to jump all over the fact that Hillary Clinton was in court. They would have reported on it, and yet no outlet reported on that. No outlet covered that court case. No outlet mentioned Hillary Clinton that day. That's a pretty good indicator that this is a fake piece of news, and that by sharing it, you're actually just making the problem worse. We need to do that as consumers, and one of the people I really like right now is Brittany Kaiser. Brittany's got her own Your Data Foundation, and there are lots of other people who are doing similar things in this space. And we're not going to fix this for people like you and I, Manana. I'm afraid, it's probably too late for us. But the next generation, we can teach them how to own their data, how to understand what is real and what is not, how to do fact checking. We can teach them how to make sure that they have sovereignty over their own data and are also fully aware of what is being shared and whether it is real or not. And we have to teach the next generation these skills, because otherwise we're just going to make this problem worse and worse and worse until we just don't know what is real or not. And that's pretty scary.
And next question, what are the new consumer behavioral and expectation after the pandemic? What do you think? What is our next challenges in media?
Next challenge for the media is the same challenge we've had, and it does depend on whether you are in mainstream media or whether you're in something specific like tech journalism or something very topical to the subject that you're interested in. In mainstream media, we need to rebuild trust. It's quite clear that a lot of people do not trust the mainstream media. The trust indexes are as low as they've ever been. Now, that's not necessarily the fault of the journalists, and it's not necessarily the fault of the various people that are pointing the fingers at those journalists and saying that they are, fake media. We need to, in my opinion, remove the independent ownership of media by people with political interests. We have this concept in mainstream media of a bunch of publications that are right-wing and a bunch of publications that are left-wing, and there's not very much in the center. And the reason for that is because the people that own them and the stakeholders and shareholders in those organizations have political leanings or make donations to political organizations. And as a result, their editorial guidelines and direction ensure that their journalists write about the news in a particular way. And I've got some interesting tests. You can do this for yourself. I've got one Twitter account that I call my blue account and another one I call my red account. And on the blue account, I follow all the left-wing media. On the red account, I follow all the right-wing media. And then I go and look and see how two sides actually report the same piece of news. And it's quite stark how different they are. And that is eroding in the trust in the entire mainstream media industry. We need to rebuild that trust. And I think the only way is through independent ownership of these media organizations, and a return to journalists doing their job, which is to fact check everything and show balance within their reporting by not just reporting on one side of the story, but reporting all sides of the story so that they're giving a really rounded view of the topic of choice. We're not so affected by that in the tech industry because we don't really have the need to be political when it comes to talking about someone's funding announcement or their latest gadget or latest app or product or service. There are still some publications that are affected by that, but not very many. But we do need to get the trust back in the industry. We also need to make sure that we are very careful to broaden the different ways that we can make revenue in the media, because what will certainly happen after the pandemic is over is that the traffic numbers will start to drop again. And the one thing that keeps the media free, the one thing that pays for those journalists to write for you is advertising and sponsorships, and all of those things either get cheaper for the sponsors or go away completely when the traffic drops off. So the media industry needs to go through a bit of a rebirth and figure out ways to make money that don't just rely on advertising and sponsorship revenue.
Mm-hmm. What's going on with personalization? How it's work right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of things there. We have obviously through machine learning, through gathering as much information as possible, behavioral information,
Mm-hmm.
and everything else that we can get access to. We have the ability to serve not just the right advertisement on the right device in the right place at the right time, but we can actually alter the content that you're seeing based upon what we think your preferences are. And that can actually work in the favor of the publication. We've all seen the big change at huge publications like Forbes over the last few years, where they moved away from a front page where the featured stories were chosen by editors, and they moved to a situation where the front page was chosen by algorithms. And you're seeing very much what they want you to see in terms of the most popular articles. And it's worked for them. Their traffic numbers are huge, and they've massively increased over the last few years. So you could argue that that's actually good for Forbes, and it's good for the reader, because you're getting something that's a little bit more like what you see when you go to your Android phone and swipe left and see all of the suggestions from Google Assistant in terms of what you should read.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually in favor of it as long as it's done respectfully. And I'm also in favor of it as long as we offer you the ability to opt out, and we offer you the what the vanilla view would look like if you decided not to share that data with us. So if we're open and honest and transparent with you, the reader, and we show you what a vanilla experience would look like, and we give you the opportunity to give us some of your data, and if you're in full control of that data, possibly even if we're giving you a little bit of money for that data, and there are economic models that allow for that, then we'll give you the personalized view. And it really just comes down to building that openness, honesty, and trust and transparency with our readership, and making sure they have the option to not give us their data, and that we'll remove that from our servers. We need to be honest about that too, and the entire industry needs to toe the line when it comes to that.
And Roger, what is more important right now, promotion, content, or distribution, or creation of this content? What do you think?
That's a great question. I think content needs to stand for itself first and foremost. It is pretty apparent to me and pretty clear to me, based on my own shares and based on the shares I see of others, that if you are sharing the same damn story I've already read 100 times over the last 6 weeks, I'm not going to click through. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to care. So the bedrock of all of this, the foundation of all of this, is the content. And yeah, in 2020, it's becoming really hard to find and write about original things, but we need to do that. We have to be original. We've got to find our way. We've got to come up with articles and stories and angles that you would not have thought of before. So the content needs to stand by itself. After that, promotion and distribution, I'll put those both in the same category. I mean, there's no point in me sitting and writing 750 beautifully crafted words on something I think is unique and then not telling anyone about it. I've got to tell people about it. And these days I've got to tell them about it in lots of different ways. It's no good just to share it on social media. Yes, it helps. It's no good just to make sure that from an SEO standpoint, the content stands on its own 2 feet and that Google will pick it up and people will find it that way. It helps. But we also have to think about other ways to distribute this content. And you'll have seen this over the last couple of years. You've seen a massive insurgence of tiny little square videos that can be shared on Instagram and Twitter and everywhere else, that are small videos that explain the crux of the story and then give you a call to action so you can click through and read the detail. And we're going to see more of that. We're going to see more of these technological solutions that allow you to pump a story into them, and they will create a video for you and then subtitle it, because we all know that these days people don't watch video with the audio on, because that would be distracting to everybody around them. So you need subtitles in there as well. Distributing news in very short format video is already very popular, and it's going to become even more popular. Mm-hmm. With platforms like Cinnamon Video, There's even the possibility to monetize those videos in real time without advertising. So, you know, it's actually a good thing to turn your news into these little videos and then distribute them via a platform like Cinnamon, because you can actually make money out of every second that somebody watches them.
Interesting. What do you think about the future of social media? Did you watch Netflix movie Social Dilemma?
Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
Some people would
what
claim.
is it? Yeah. What is it? Yeah, sorry.
Some people would claim that the Social Dilemma is just a marketer's handbook for 2020. Yeah, social media is, I believe, going to go through a bit of a change soon. We currently still have so much focus on vanity metrics when it comes to social media. We are incentivizing people to buy followers. We're incentivizing people to just share their information to as many people as is humanly possible, even if those people aren't real. Web monetization platforms that do not rely on advertising, do not rely on sponsors or product placement, like Cinnamon, are going to change the way that we run our social media, because if you are not focused on product placement, if you're not focused on appeasing a sponsor or making an advertiser happy, if you're not focused on vanity metrics because you really just care about your real fans, you can be authentic in your messaging, you can be authentic in your delivery, you can say what you really want, because you'll know that the people that are real, that want to see your output, are going to see it. I believe that we need to get back to the early days of social and have much more authentic feeds, and make sure that the people that we are following and the people that are following us are real human beings, and actually care about what we're producing. And new monetization standards will help with that, because the way that we do it right now through sponsorships, product placements, influencer marketing deals, and advertising are just incentivizing all of the wrong behaviors, and we need to stop that from happening.
And my question about startups, you should give like a short advice for the startups who want to survive during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's going to be super difficult. The advice is to make sure that what you actually have is needed. I'm afraid to say that startups are usually founded by very technically brilliant people who ask the question, can I do this? And then the answer is usually, yes, I can. But they very rarely ask, should I do this? And does it already exist 700 times? And is there a reason that I should go and recreate this thing? And factually, I get somewhere between 200 and 400 pitches a day from startups that want me to write about them. And about 99% of those startups are not original, and they are just recreating something that already exists. So don't dive into creating a startup unless you've asked those questions. Are you actually solving a problem in a unique way that has not either been solved before or not been solved that way before? And is your way of solving it better than the existing? Because if it's not, go do something else. I know it's hard, but we're talking about your time, which is the most precious resource and commodity in the world. We're talking about your money, potentially your friends and family's money, potentially your investors' money. And if you're going to create the 768th mobile analytics platform that exists, you better be damn sure it is the best one out there and it solves problems that none of the others do. And I'm afraid to say, in some industries, you can coexist with solutions. I mean, you don't always have to be the first market mover. You don't always have to be the one that takes the big market share. Look at the meditation app space, for example. Calm and Headspace and Insight Timer and a few others all coexist beautifully with each other because they all have a slightly different niche and they all look after slightly different customers. But if I was to bring out a meditation app right now, it would surely fail because that market share has already been taken by the top three. So be very smart and clear about whether you should be in this particular industry. Also, just slightly be wary as well. If it turns out you think you found something that has never been done before, it might be there's a reason it's never been done before, and that's because there's no market for it. So spend some time, spend some money on doing your real market research to see if there are people out there who will give you money for your product, service, app, whatever it is.
It's great advice. And same advice, but for the investors. Where
Stop.
the best investment opportunity in short strategy.
Well, I think, Manana, I spend a lot of my time going around the world and these days online talking about mental health in the tech industry. And I'm afraid VCs are just as responsible for causing all sorts of damage and problems and burnout and self-harm and even suicide within our industry, because they are constantly going after founders and executives to work harder, not smarter. They are not giving them the emotional support they need. They're not giving them the therapy and counseling support that they need. We're not allowing them to do anything except get them their 10x return, which is their ultimate goal, is what they want. They constantly are pushing this sort of hustle and grind mentality, and we need to stop that. I promise you, if you're a VC and you're watching this, I promise you that nothing will kill your investment in a business faster than if the investor kills themselves. So you need to stop pushing people so hard. You need to think about how to work smarter, not harder. And we need to put all the right mechanisms in place to make sure that people's mental health is fully supported. Once you've done that, then please stop giving your money to a younger version of yourself. Some of the best startups out there are created by people who are not like you. They didn't go to Stanford. They are not coming up with, something and coming to you with their idea and saying, hey, but we went to the same university. If you look at some of the most recent successes, they've been created by people from very diverse, diverse backgrounds in terms of ethnicity, in terms of, gender and ability. Look for those solutions and do all of your due diligence, because, I have to tell you, the numbers back this up. If you go and you look at any of the teams that are out there that are diverse, there's a reason why diversity and equality works within a business. And it's because the product or service that is being developed is more likely to appeal to a broader and therefore more voluminous audience if you have a team that will help you to design it for everybody and not just for the people that look like you. That's the problem with having startups that are just a bunch of young white men, is that they'll produce products that are good for young white men, and that's actually a pretty niche marketplace. Make sure you focus on those teams that have diversity and equality, and you'll find that their products and services are going to appeal to a much broader audience, and therefore you're more likely to get a return on your investment.
Yeah, and last question. Everybody wanna be a content creator right now. And what is your advice for the creative people, for the broadcasters, or maybe guys who are running on microblog, or maybe TikTokers, maybe young generation? Maybe this advice should be for the millennials.
Yeah, it is very important for us all to be as creative as possible these days. It's very clear that you are not going to get noticed, and therefore you are not necessarily going to have the flexibility and the capability to live out your passions and to do what your life's purpose is, unless you are not just creative but different to everybody else, and you're producing something that people will like. If you look at all the biggest YouTube stars, all the biggest TikTok stars, they are all doing something that is unique and different and interesting from everybody else. They're the ones that start the trends. In the case of TikTok, you look at some of the trends that start there, and it starts with one person who had an idea that's not been done before, and they're the ones that are getting the millions of views. And if they're in the TikTok creator program, they're making thousands of dollars a day, and that's going to enable them a future where they get to do what they want. I know that in this time, it's hard to be different and interesting and unique, because you would think that everything has already been created, but there are still ways to do that. the most important thing is to be authentic. And
Mhm.
don't chase after vanity metrics. Don't try to build your following in silly ways that are just going to attract lots of bots or fake followers or people that don't care about you. Focus on authenticity. If you look at any social network or any community platform that was ever created, there's generally two types. One type is the social network that wants to grow fast, and so they pay for users, they pay for acquisition. And the other type is the ones that grow organically. And you look at the stark difference in the way that those two social networks work. The ones that paid for their users generally end up with all of the trolls and the bigots and the nasty people, because you're just buying cheap users and they're coming in and doing what they like with your platform, and they typically will be horrible to each other, and it won't work out well. You look at something like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's community site Hit Record. It grew completely organically. They never advertised, not even once. And as a result, you've got a community that cares about each other, that supports each other, that if they see a troll come in, they actually deal with it in a nice community way, and they stop that person from behaving that way. That's the difference between organic growth and injecting users into your system by just buying them. Do that with your social media. Grow it organically. I know it takes longer, but have patience, and you'll get lots of people who come and they love your content and they want to stick around if you are consistent and authentic and you've got something unique to say. And that was going to open up a whole new world of opportunities for you in the future.
Okay, Roger. Stuart, sorry. Thank you for this time.
Thank you.
It was amazing. Thank you for the stream, and see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me. It's really wonderful, and thanks for all the great questions.
Yes. And yeah, see you. Bye-bye.
All right.